If you clicked on this video, it's probably because you want to learn more about Weirdcore. Maybe one of your friends is into it, or you found a Weirdcore image online and you thought it was really cool, but you're here for a reason. Or you're just one of my normal fans and you wanted to watch another one of my videos, which, welcome, I'm glad you're here. So in this video, I will provide basically a beginner's guide to Weirdcore, how to get into it, what to do to get into it, what you might need to know, what you might want to know. Everything is in this video, and then after this, if you want to learn more, I have a million videos on Weirdcore. I have my Weirdcore iceberg, which is amazing. Man, I sound like a dick right now. No, but if you want to learn more, I have a bunch of other stuff on my channel, which is great for getting to know what Weirdcore is, but this video should be everything you need to get started. Weirdcore is an aesthetic that is primarily expressed through images, but it can also be expressed through videos, audio, music, etc. But what makes Weirdcore what it is its fascination with nostalgia, the uncanny, and what's disorienting. You may see it compared to dreamcore quite a bit, and they're very similar, but they are a little bit different. Weirdcore is made specifically to disorient you, to make you feel a little bit unsettled, and to kind of make you face your childhood nostalgia, or just nostalgia in general, and to provide some kind of negative feeling that goes with that. It's kind of like how I mention this on my channel a lot, and everybody hates it, but how fetishes come from our trauma, and how it becomes a fetish because something in our brain wants to relive whatever trauma we go through. Weirdcore is gonna put some of your trauma in front of you and make you confront it, and then you can cope through it. So specifically, this aesthetic deals with a lot of dreamy, atmospheric, and kind of eerie places, and then it puts things in those spaces which are just out of place, like they shouldn't be there. These places are often like places from your childhood or just nostalgic places, and that blend of what shouldn't be there with something that's kind of familiar to you and kind of dreamy makes Weirdcore what it is. Another common theme that should be noted is that it uses a lot of lo-fi or amateur photography and editing. So most Weirdcore images that you see will have some kind of, it'll look like it's out of the 90s or early 2000s, like it'll be on purpose look like it's a lot older than it really is, and that is again meant to bring about the nostalgia that Weirdcore is supposed to invoke. Weirdcore imagery, I mean, even though what I just said, it can really be anything. It doesn't have to fall into some kind of box. The only distinction here to make is that Weirdcore isn't there just to be weird or strange or like just not normal. Weirdcore is all about that emotional resonance that comes from putting the familiar, the nostalgic, with something that's out of place. So as long as that's there, then it's gonna be Weirdcore. Travel back in time with me to the late 90s and the early 2000s. This is when the internet was becoming a thing. Dial-up internet, early Microsoft computers, this is when the digital realm is coming. This is when the digital age is upon us. And this is the home for where we get a lot of inspiration from Weirdcore. See, before Weirdcore was kind of coined as Weirdcore, it was still there for many years. It's just this idea of putting the nostalgic and the uncomforting together. And this was happening for years, like I said. And then in the early 2010s, Weirdcore became more tangible. People started using the term Weirdcore when describing this nostalgic and unsettling imagery. The origins of the term Weirdcore is still kind of murky, like nobody really knows who coined it or where it was coined or anything, but I mean, I don't really care because I'm just glad that it exists today. Online platforms have played a really crucial role in making Weirdcore what it is today. Specifically, Tumblr is where a lot of Weirdcore artists are. Like, I might put some links in the description to some really good Weirdcore artists on Tumblr. This is where the best is really made, and it's interesting why it's Tumblr because there's no like follower counts or anything, to my knowledge. So you can't really know who the best Weirdcore creators are. And so from these online communities, Weirdcore has made it out of the shell it once was and kind of more into the mainstream. Like, I'm not really an internet person who like goes on those kinds of websites, so I would have never known about Weirdcore if it wasn't for the fact that it became so much more like well known. I'm grateful for that. This happened through like Discord and Reddit mostly. Whenever it hit those places, people started talking about it more and it became more well known. So let's delve deeper into the actual heart of Weirdcore, what makes it what it is, the artistic elements. Let's start with the amateur and primitive graphics. Weirdcore embraces the raw and the experimental where it's not polished. This is the realm of early digital art where Arial font reigns supreme and there's no anti-aliasing on it. It looks kind of like crap, but on purpose. It's all very primitive photo editing, very primitive photos. The camera quality is never good. Image compression is used a whole lot in these images. Like Weirdcore pictures are supposed to look like they were taken on like old Nokia phones, like really, really old phones, or like those disposable old cameras you could buy back in the day. It's supposed to look blurry and grainy, and this is again where it ties into nostalgia and distortion and weirdness, because you know, nostalgia obviously with the old cameras, but then also that makes it more distorted, and these things come together making Weirdcore. Another one of the defining features of Weirdcore is the familiar yet disorienting imagery. Like it'll be a hallway that just goes on forever, or a staircase that has a window that just opens out into the sky, just like the open sky. And especially when we use these like old homes or outside or places that we'll recognize as humans and just like from our childhood and stuff, it brings that nostalgia aspect into it, which is really what makes Weirdcore so special, in my opinion, to me. And this brings us to another very important aspect of Weirdcore, the lack of context. Images and scenes often appear without any sort of context or explanation, which leads to the viewer needing to make up their own interpretation, which makes Weirdcore really personal, which is why I love it so much. It's like, you know, whenever you wake up from the middle of like a weird dream and you don't really remember how the dream started, you just remember like where you woke up at, and you're trying to think like, how the hell did I get there? That's what Weirdcore is like. It's supposed to be the same kind of thing where there's no real clear explanation or narrative to where you are, what the image is supposed to be, what's going on, and you have to make up your own reasoning, your own story, which, you know, will then kind of point it towards your own trauma, because your brain is always thinking about your trauma, so it'll make that story deal with your trauma, which is what Weirdcore is also all about. In Weirdcore, vagueness is key. I mean, if you give the answers all right there, it might look weird, it might look creepy, but it's not going to be Weirdcore because there's no thinking. And Weirdcore is a pretty intelligent art in that it makes you think whenever you look at it. And finally, it's important to know that Weirdcore isn't just about making strange stuff. Weirdcore is all about conjoining two opposites, the past and the present, the digital from the primitive. It's all about that. As we talk about this, we gotta distinguish Weirdcore from other similar aesthetics. The most common ones that people kind of mix it up with are dreamcore, traumacore, liminal spaces, and bastardcore, and we're gonna talk about all four of those now. Starting with dreamcore, it's like I said earlier, where dreamcore is pretty much the same thing but without any kind of unsettling nature. It's like Weirdcore but without the trauma aspect. It's just nostalgic and dreamy and atmospheric, and it doesn't really have that eerie element that a lot of Weirdcore has. And then traumacore is kind of the opposite, because it's like Weirdcore but without the dreaminess, without the atmosphericness, and focusing all on the trauma. And I know that traumacore can be a touchy topic because it's very serious and it should be treated as such, and I know that some people don't really agree with calling it an aesthetic. I don't really know. I'm gonna call it an aesthetic just because that's what is on like the websites and stuff, but please treat traumacore with respect and take it seriously. People out here really, really need that and deserve that. Now let's talk about liminal spaces. Liminal spaces is another aesthetic that is nostalgic and dreamy, and it is kind of one of the building blocks for Weirdcore. A lot of Weirdcore images are liminal spaces that have been edited. So liminal spaces are very, very, very similar, but it's just without any of the editing, without the amateurish or lo-fi photography. It's kind of one of the building blocks, like I said. Lastly, we have bastardcore, which is, again, very similar to Weirdcore, but it's kind of just there to be random. And I'm not trying to bash it or anything. I think that bastardcore it can be funny, and it's meant to be humorous. It's just kind of like Weirdcore, but without any seriousness, without any trauma or nostalgia. It's just there to do whatever the hell it wants to do. So I've only been talking about Weirdcore as a visual image medium, which is not always the case. Weirdcore also has a lot of other vessels. It's just an aesthetic after all. Weirdcore can also be portrayed through fashion or music or videos, or I mean, it's an aesthetic. It can be anything really. In the realm of music, Weirdcore music doesn't have to be one genre per se. It's more about the feeling that it evokes, that of unease and nostalgia. A lot of Weirdcore songs are really dreamy and use a lot of old like 80s and 90s synths for that old school sound. But a key point to remember here is the subjectivity of everything that I'm saying, how one song could be a Weirdcore song to one person, but it wouldn't be to another person, because it's all about each person's interpretation, their own nostalgia, their childhood, everything like that. Moving on to fashion, Weirdcore fashion is, well, it's kind of hard to explain with words. I'll show some pictures on screen right now. It's interesting. I like it. It's just hard to say, like with words, you know? But you understand. Remember though, with everything in Weirdcore, it all relies on the essence and the feeling that it evokes. So anything could be Weirdcore. Everything has a chance to be Weirdcore, it just depends on that feeling that it evokes. Okay, so now you know all of this and you want to actually get deeper into Weirdcore. How do you do that? What are some practical steps to take to get closer and better into Weirdcore? We're gonna talk about that. Firstly is to just immerse yourself. Go on Tumblr and Reddit. Go to the r/Weirdcore subreddit, join some Discords for Weirdcore. I have a Discord if you want to join it. We talk about Weirdcore, liminal spaces, dreamcore, all that kind of thing. Just immerse yourself, look at it a lot, and then you'll kind of get a better idea for what Weirdcore really is. Another thing is to kind of get into the community, you know, initiate some discussions, you know, join like my Discord I said, or join the subreddit, go on Tumblr, start talking to people about it, get some conversations going, and from there you can really make some connections with people and you can kind of learn more from other people's interpretations. And finally, once you feel like you've learned enough, try making your own art. I'm still kind of new at making my own stuff. I mean, I have some shorts on my channel that you should check out. If you want to see me making my own Weirdcore art, it's kind of hard and it's kind of weird, but it's really, really rewarding once you get down to it. And I would recommend trying that once you feel like you're ready. And remember to accept criticism. You know, people can be kind of harsh on the internet, but it's usually a good thing because we can all grow. Each artist was bad at one point, you know, and it's also just important to incorporate your own personal touch. Make sure that everything you do, all the art that you make is really you and you're not trying to force it for anybody else, because that's what we need. We need more individuality. And if you're watching this video and you're a newcomer to Weirdcore, please leave a link to some of your work in the comments and I'll be sure to check it out, provide some feedback, and, you know, just respond to it. Remember, the Weirdcore journey is all about you, all about self-expression, and do what you feel comfortable with. Let your creativity flow and enjoy it. Now, sweet dreams, everybody, and sleep well. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Okay, I love you. Bye.